I set out to do this specifically to do it in Cleveland. When I decided, when I went through my own diligence, and decided I was going to go do another early startup, and I was willing to pour 4 to 7 years of my livelihood into it, and tell my wife and kids like, sorry, yep, I'm going to work 80 hours a week. I want to do it in Cleveland. I want to like be one of the people who said, hey, we did it here. I think we just need a lot more of that.
Let's discover the Cleveland entrepreneurial ecosystem. We are telling the stories of its entrepreneurs and those supporting them. Welcome to the Lay of the Land podcast, where we are exploring what people are building in Cleveland and coming to you live from the very same place. Today's guest is Gerald Hetrick. Gerald has a decorated past here in Cleveland's entrepreneurial space as a technology leader at MCPC, as a co-founder, CTO, and COO at Vox Mobile, and more recently as the CEO of Able, which was formerly known as Employstream. Gerald has also been a mentor of mine during my time here in Cleveland. After Votum's collapse transpired in February of 2019, I found myself seeking out and talking to as many founders and builders as I could across Cleveland to better understand what everyone was working on, which was very much the inspiration for what the Lay of the Land podcast has now become. But during those conversations, I'd connected with Gerald, who graciously took me on as a consultant at then Employstream, now Able. During that summer, though, to help him think through the future of work and healthcare staffing opportunity leading up to Able's Series B round. I've learned a lot from Gerald in our time working together, and frankly, he's one of the reasons I'm still here in Cleveland after the challenges experienced at Votum. And so I'm really excited to share his story and the story of Able. So please enjoy our conversation. Before we kind of dive into Able and what you're working on now, I'd love if you're reading your Wikipedia page, can you give us a little bit about the threads that you've pulled on throughout your career and, the story of how it is that you got to where you are today?
Yeah, wow. I'm pretty old, so it feels like, it's funny. For the longest time, I was always the youngest person at the table in a lot of different settings. I would always have a little bit of insecurity related to like my lack of experience. Whether it was in founding situations of businesses or leadership roles or whatnot. But now I look back and I think I'm actually one of the oldest people at my company, and my experience set is probably the deepest. So I didn't set out to become an entrepreneur per se, and I just never really liked following rules or never really liked being told what to do, and always seemed to kind of choose a different direction if someone was pushing me somewhere hard. So I wasn't able to just take the easy way out and go to college, which would have been the easier thing for me to do. And I wasn't able to just take the easier jobs day one. I always had to go do something different. And so for me, I kind of really, really fell in love with the concept of building things. I started working at a local IT value-added reseller here in Cleveland when I was 17. And they were on a spree of they got acquired, and then the acquiring company was buying many other businesses. And I got the opportunity to move around the country and help them open offices and consolidate operations. And I just really loved the idea of building things. So really kind of fell in love with the concept of building things, and then accidentally just started doing that more and more, and got the opportunity to be part of the founding team of my last startup, Vox Mobile. I got the opportunity to help a number of other folks here in the city and otherwise, start little businesses. And it seems like that's all. It seems like a limited amount of history, but it sure has been a long time.
Nice. Can you expand a little bit on Vox Mobile and the story there?
Yeah. So Vox is a managed service business. It's a mobile managed service business. So it's basically a tech-enabled outsourcing company that allows really large businesses to outsource the operations of their mobile device program. So large companies often give employees devices or give them apps or encourage them to use devices and apps to do business. And Vox is one of the only companies in the country that offers a full suite of outsourcing services for that. So software support to help those devices get connected, and help desk services and procurement services, and all a full suite of services and solutions to really help a mobile device program be really effective. I was part of a organization called MCPC. I was actually one of the first employees there. The weekend MCPC was founded, I didn't sleep because I was building our IT infrastructure over the entire weekend. But MCPC did a wonderful job at organizing technology offerings into practices. And a guy named Chris Snyder, the COO of that business, was really passionate about this mobile device management practice or this mobile managed service practice that we had internally. It didn't really fit into the long-term strategic plans of MCPC, and so he had the opportunity to take it private, and I joined him in the founding of that business in 2006, I believe it was. And so it was awesome. We took a really great action-oriented founding team that we moved that away from MCPC and built it kind of the ground up here in Cleveland. Which is still a really great viable business here locally. Employs a couple hundred people and doing really well.
Nice. So you spent a few years there building, growing.
Yeah, 10 years. 10 years.
10 years there. Wow. So in the transition from Vox Mobile to Employstream, can you share a bit about how that transition occurred and, having gone through the process of being on the founding team and building something kind of from inception to more than 100 employees, making the decision to just to try it again?
Yeah, it feels like it was just yesterday, honestly, but it was almost 4 years ago now. I'm human, and there's nothing different about startup CEOs or founders or whatever the magical term of the day is. I mean, we're all still human. And after 10 years at Vox, I was just getting anxious and was really starting to contemplate the value that I was delivering to the business versus what it costs and how I could, how maybe, a fresh start and with someone in my role or fresh voices in the business might benefit it. And so I really started to get anxious about, when it would be my time, my turn or the right time for me to step down. I kind of knew that about 12 months before I did. And, started talking with the leadership team there and our board there. And basically at the end of, I think it was the end of 2017, we were doing some strategic planning for the next year. And I just decided that, hey, it's kind of my time to leave. And so we came to an agreement with Chris and the rest of the board about how I would exit. And we did some succession planning. I had a really very incredibly strong leadership team that supported me. And many of those folks are still there doing great things. And so I was not planning on going to do another startup type endeavor. I was planning on taking a little bit of time off, a couple months, maybe a little bit of the winter off. And frankly, my fairy tale dream at that point was to just go work at, a Microsoft or a VMware or a Cisco and do a couple years at a larger company with better benefits and maybe, higher pay. And I hate to say this, maybe relax a little bit because the startup grind can be really challenging. And then I was introduced to, actually Chris gave me a call one day. I think it might have even been my last day at Vox after we were celebrating. Chris gave me a call and said, hey, one of my buddies has this idea for a business and they've built a product and they've incubated inside of their own organization and talked to some beta customers. And they need someone to come launch it and build it. And so frankly, I took that meeting. I went and met them and took the meeting completely out of courtesy. I had no real interest. I didn't feel like I had the grind in me for a while. I felt like I needed to, rest and maybe go through some rehab. And so I met this gentleman named Aaron Grossman, who's really well known here in Cleveland. He's a very passionate guy, particularly about technology and how it can enable businesses to be much greater. And I met him and he pitched me on the concept and said, we're just looking for someone that's got the chops and wherewithal to come build something. And so I left the meeting and I was still very much, not seriously, not taking it very serious. But I spent the next couple of weeks just getting to know him and the other founder, a guy named Rob Sable, and just fell in love with the concept of selling, HR software into a very boxed in space, which was the staffing market, which is the market they're selling into. I started to romanticize the concept of building again and forgot all the challenging times and only remember the great times. I started to think about, really I was excited about all the things I believed I had done wrong or that, we didn't do effectively when we built Vox, and, could I learn from those mistakes and apply them? And, all the times where I was in my I told you so moments, like I told you we should have done this differently. Was that actually true? And so I basically decided to take that gig on Christmas Day of 2016, I believe it was, and started right after the new year in 2017. It was a monster transition. I went from a business where we had gone through the first couple of years, startup phase, and we had, departments of people, and we had support folks, and we had plenty of people to do things. And suddenly I was the only employee, and with some other folks that were splitting their time between us and the staffing agency, which where we work from. So I had to lift the business, get it off the ground, get it funded, get it commercialized, and then figure out how to get into customer acquisition mode, how to hire, how to make sure the product could get sold, and do all that with enough velocity such that we could prove some sustainability pretty quickly.
How much of that is easier the second time around?
I don't know if any of it was easier. It was different, and some of it felt like flexing muscles that I had already developed versus just maybe some guesswork from the first time. Maybe some instincts I trusted some instincts more the second time, but I don't know if it was very easier. I mean, the first time, well, maybe because I was much younger, I was mid 20s and very idealistic. The first time, you're full of hope and passion, and nothing can stop you, and every little roadblock is part of the journey, and you're powering through it, and can't wait to write the book about it. The second time, I think you dwell on things a bit more, and you're a bit more, I don't want to say conservative, but certainly a bit more measured in how you address problems, because there can be longer term consequences. So it's just different. I can't say it was easier.
Got it. Well, with the transition, I'd love to talk a bit more about the company, which is since rebranded to Able.
Yep.
In your kind of announcement of it, you wrote to the world that, I'll quote here, deep down, we believe that no matter who someone is, what job they do, whether they are temporary or permanent, every employee can and should be able to have a great first day. So formerly Employstream, but I love if you could tell us a bit more about what Able means to you, and what kind of this rebranding means for the company and for customers, and a bit about the staffing industry.
It was a multi-pronged set of reasons to rebrand. The first was no one that works at our business right now was part of the creation of the name Employstream. Someone told me a long time ago that all important things have a name, and you try to build some emotional connection to that name. And we really didn't believe that there was a real great emotionally connected story around the name Employstream. Also, people called us Employee Stream, and it just got under my skin like crazy. I heard Employee Stream probably once a week, and it just really started to affect me. But further, we're unapologetically a startup. We want to be a startup. We want to have that kind of agility and that vigor and that passion. We wanted to have a brand that we felt was a powerful platform to go do all kinds of cool startup stuff. I just felt that the brand we had was a little bit tired, and was a little bit we didn't feel like it was a launching off point. And it also kind of boxed us into this to kind of one kind of concept. And so we wanted to do the very traditional, find a single syllable word if possible, something that could have a lot of different meanings, something that people could connect to, that could say easily. And we actually hired an agency to do a little bit of a search for us, interview us and customers and all the fancy stuff that creative marketing agencies do. And they pitched us on the idea. We loved it a lot. And so for me, the concept of Able is just about, we have the tagline, ready, willing, able. And it sounds a bit corny, but it's rooted in truth, in that we think that we service staffing companies, of which there's 20,000 recruiting agencies in the United States alone. And about 10,000 of those are temporary, employ temporary workers. And those are our type of customers. And they do, the concept of Able is that there's people that are ready and willing to go to work. And we help the staffing companies make them able to go to work by delivering on this really incredible, automated, highly intuitive onboarding experience. So there's a lot of utility in the name from a propellant for startups, but also hopefully a lot of emotional connection and a brand that we can be really proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very exciting, rebrand. It's not something that I think you see often at all. It has a nice ring.
I got some sideways looks on it. Some people like, hey, is rebranding really that important to a startup? Is it really something you should spend any money on? And we sat on it for a year. I mean, we had the brand framework mostly built and the name decided and everything ready. We sat on it for almost a year. We hired a new chief marketing officer, and in the process of hiring him, I realized that it would be kind of like, hiring an offensive coordinator, then handing them the playbook you wanted them to run later. So I really wanted him to be able to join and kind of take the brand and, stretch it out a bit and play with it a bit and make sure we could deliver it the right way. But yeah, it wasn't, sure, some people along the way probably thought it was a distraction that we shouldn't undertake, but I really felt very passionately that we needed to build a bigger platform.
Yeah, absolutely. How large is Able today? We
have just under 50 employees. COVID was a really interesting acceleration of our distributed work opportunities for us. So we like many people in March decided to go work from home on a Friday. Actually, I think I sent a note over Slack to the team on a Thursday night that says, hey, we're gonna go indefinitely to work from home, and then the governor did the stay at home order the next day. So I felt like, hey, I was in front of it. And when we did that, we also were in the midst of deciding to double the size of our engineering team. Whilst we were planning for how we were going to recruit, we realized that, hey, we've got all these people working from home. Maybe we could expand our search and don't just look in Cleveland. And based on that, we now have almost 50 employees in 10 different states. So the vast majority are here in Cleveland, 35 or so are here in Cleveland, but we have people in LA, we have people in Austin, we have a couple of people in Chicago, we've got people in Michigan. So it's been great to see the distributed workforce come together.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that actually, given that, the work that Able is doing is very much focused on the future of work and technology in the workplace, and how COVID has certainly thrown a wrench, or it probably accelerated the degree to which companies have to, or are, pushed in the direction of going remote. From that perspective, how have you seen COVID affect Able more broadly from a business perspective, and also internally as a company?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some good and bad points. I mean, on one hand, yes. So again, our customers are staffing agencies, so they hire at massive scale. So to give you an idea, in May, which I think was the first month we measured it, we had about 12,000 people completed onboarding through our platform. Last month, about 60,000 people completed onboarding through our platform. And so the work from home environment has created this need to remotely onboard people. So staffing agencies in a lot of different times would have people come to their office and go through this onboarding process. And while we've always pitched that part of our value is to eliminate that need for people to come to the office, I don't think many companies really leverage that. I think they like the concept of, hey, people come see who we are, come to our brick and mortar. And so suddenly remote onboarding was a requirement, right? And it was that if you're going to hire these 10,000 people this month, which many staffing agencies hire that many people, you have to do it remotely. And so not only did that pop like a rapid growth for us, it also made a bunch of organizations that weren't otherwise thinking very strategically about technology to start thinking very strategically about technology. Further, it made a bunch of organizations that weren't really well prepared to think about strategically about technology believe they had to do that. So we've had just this unpredictable amount of inbound feature requests, feature demands, just all of the nightmare stuff that software companies feel when every customer does something a bit differently. And so we've had to figure out how to balance that. Like how do we build macro? How do we think about things strategically from a macro level to benefit all customers, but also satisfy some very strategic customers on an individual level. Further, the level of growth, the rapid growth we went through has exposed some things in our business. I mean, most products have cracks and crevices, and ours is no different. We didn't some of them we were aware of that weren't major issues that we had some time to resolve. Some of them we weren't aware of, but rapid growth has forced all of that to the forefront. And so we've had to be really targeted about how we handle that. So we've become overrun on the support side. We've become overrun on some of the customer success dealings. So it's been a bit of a challenge. I mean, selling the business has had to level up rapidly from an operations perspective, and we're right in the midst of that firefight. Then, we provide this automated onboarding platform that connects to the government's E-Verify service. So for citizenship verification, which is a really hot topic right now, and also leverages a third party for digital signature. Both of those tools have gone through explosive growth related to COVID, work from home as well. Both of them have had their own technology challenges. So we have down channel outages that impact our customers more than we would like. So, on one hand, the growth has been fantastic and we're able to accelerate the business rapidly. On the other hand, we're out in front of our skis a little bit in some cases, and we're having to catch up real quick on service debt and tech debt and operations maturity debt.
Yep, that's in some ways good problems to have, though. The rapid growth is always.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a different kind of cat when it comes to building a startup. My notion is go get customers, get customers. Let's get to market. Let's find product market fit, and let's try to exploit it as fast as possible. Building the perfect product and the perfect engine without real idea of what you can get. I don't think it's sustainable, particularly in Midwestern type of valuations. And so I would much rather have customers and have a delivery challenge that we can remedy versus sitting around trying to figure out how we're ever going to sell it.
Tying in the Midwestern valuations, in addition to really the confluence of things that is going on at Able at the moment, the rebranding, the rapid growth, you're also off the back of a $7 million Series B raise. Could you talk a bit more about raising in Cleveland, what that process was like for you, having kind of successfully navigated one of the larger rounds that a company has seen in recent history?
Yeah, we did. We actually did $9 million total, including so $7 million in equity and a couple billion in debt. It was led by Plymouth Growth Partners, which is an Ann Arbor, Michigan company, and our entire existing cap table of institutional investors. So Jumpstart, North Coast Angel Fund, which is now North Coast Ventures, Ohio Innovation Fund, M25 out of Chicago, I think I've got everyone there. And then a bunch of really awesome, amazing local angels have been, supporting us for a while. So everyone participated in that. Sometimes I think we overuse the term like it's tough to raise a Cleveland, or we think about Cleveland specifically. It's really there's a regional situation we're dealing with in which, and some of it is we just have built a story for ourselves that says the Midwest is different, so it should be different. There's no doubt that we don't typically see the valuations that you might get in Silicon Valley and the Peninsula, or you might get in Austin, or you might get in Boston. We're not seeing those massive, huge multiple valuations, pre-revenue valuations that enable companies to go, build palatial office suites and, hire the greatest machine learning talent in the world and build an incredible product and figure out how to go to market later. We don't really have that for sure, but we certainly have, plenty of great startup mindset here. And there are no shortage of venture capital firms that have a desire to invest in the Midwest. And I think there's this I don't know, maybe this myth of challenge that isn't as real, but there is something to be said for the fact that it's tough. It's tough to raise here, in that you have to get to revenue, you have to return money to shareholders, you have to show you're on a path to do that. Particularly with the funds that are Midwestern focused primarily. This is it doesn't seem to be a great region for platform companies. And I'm talking mostly on the tech side. I mean, certainly we have an entire kind of, healthcare, medical device, pharmaceutical, culture that's different, and a lot of pre-revenue big valuations get pulled together there. But as far as the tech startup world, I mean, I think of it as a kind of a pragmatic approach from everyone's standpoint. Put together pragmatic operating teams, put together pragmatic valuations, and raise money and deploy it pragmatically. It feels like it's just a little bit more of a measured approach here. I just kind of riffed there. I didn't really answer any questions. So sorry about that.
No, that's okay. We can riff a bit more. You mentioned the almost like mischaracterization of Cleveland, and I know you kind of put out an article recently speaking to that mischaracterization, and speaking to what there is here in Cleveland, the support of startups, having a great foundation, the investment that is happening in the region, beer, sports, like in less COVID afflicted times. But
sure,
in your perspective, how do we work to address the mischaracterization that persists?
I get frustrated as I guess as I get older and more grouchy about this. We say, oh, it's tough to have a startup in Cleveland. You can't do it. You got to go to the West Coast, and then sometimes that happens. We just keep saying that, and we say it just because the last person said it, and it just feels like that's the thing. That's the thing to say. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of venture capital firms have reached out and done the whole, hey, we like your story. Can we talk? And we had the preliminary conversation with an analyst, or maybe sometimes it's over email with a bot or whatever it is. And they say like, yeah, we've got this we'd love to invest in the Midwest. And then you're, an hour into the first couple of conversations, and they're like, hey, would you ever consider moving out to the Valley? Would you move out? And it happens very, very frequently. And I feel like, someone has to, I shouldn't say someone, I'm not trying to put myself on a pedestal, but there has to be a generation of startups that decides not to do that, and that decides to, fight it out here. And I think we could quickly kind of put, that issue to bed. There's no doubt, if you just think about pure economics, there's no doubt we have less people. We have less university. We have less highly educated people. We don't have, Google that just shoots off tens of thousands of, entrepreneurial minded people in a region on a yearly basis. We don't have some of that. So we do have to fight against those things, but it doesn't mean that there's not an incredible amount of talent that is either here that we should try to work to get to stay here, or is here that we can enable to get here. And, for us, it might be easier. It might have been easier to take Able out to the West Coast and not have recruiting issues and be able to hire super incredible people, without thinking about it, and get great valuations. But I think I set out to do this specifically to do it in Cleveland. When I decided, when I went through my own diligence, and decided I was going to go do another early startup, and I was willing to pour 4 to 7 years of my livelihood into it, and tell my wife and kids like, sorry, yep, I'm going to work 80 hours a week. I want to do it in Cleveland. I want to be one of the people who said, hey, we did it here. I think we just need a lot more of that, and it feels like that's happening. I mean, I've got to know the startup ecosystem here, and there's just so much great. There's a ton of ideation, and there's a ton of people trying really hard. And I think if that starts to converge with more available capital, that's just easier to get deployed here. I think we'll be good. I do think here's one of the best things. We had to hire seven or eight engineers here recently, and there were some high-end roles. And we look at the roles and be like, ah, man, are we going to be able to find that in Cleveland? The answer to some of that was no. We just didn't think there was a great candidate pool in Cleveland, but it didn't mean we couldn't be a Cleveland company because of that. We can think about this new world of work in which we're remote and we're embracing remote culture and leverage talent all over the place, still enabling a Cleveland or a Midwestern company. I think there's just a new way to think about it, or a different way to think about it.
Yeah. One of my favorite patterns I've found just talking to people building here in Cleveland is that collective like chip on the shoulder that we want to do it here. We want to build it here.
Yeah. I have a really good friend. His name's Hetrick. He works at Jumpstart, who's a local investment and services organization here in Cleveland. A great resource for potential startups. He's awesome in that he'll routinely find these like little hidden gem success stories. Like, not everything has to be like a AI tech company to be successful, right? He'll find these like little hidden gem, like, hey, did you know we had an exit of a couple $100 million of a manufacturing company in Solon? Like he'll find these and be like, there's way more happening here regionally. There's way more successful economy creation type stuff happening here than we're willing to give ourselves credit for. And just because they're not all huge, big unicorn tech companies doesn't mean that there's not, a lot of great stuff happening. And just because they're not all, cover my meds and root insurance and these great, wonderful stories, there's plenty of Vox Mobiles out there, businesses that are, 10, 15, 20, 25, $50 million and are, going to operate and create a lot of great jobs and have really successful outcomes for shareholders along the way. And I think there's plenty of that regionally. And I think we just need to embrace that, we're both of those things. We are both a region that can support unicorns if they're willing to take a chance of starting here, and can support great, thoughtful, operating good businesses.
One of the things I just wanted to circle back to was in the same way that this new world of remote work is going to allow companies like Able to leverage a less regional workforce to find talent that is not limited by geography. I feel like the narrative from a VC perspective, those bots, analysts, VCs that are asking, hey, how about a move out to the West Coast? That's kind of got to have a ripple effect in the same way that question makes increasingly less sense going forward.
Yeah, it certainly does. We've had some examples here of people who have done that successfully, but what you want. So one of the challenges I think we have in the startup community here regionally is leadership. We've got great ideation and a lot of great energy and passion and access to capital. There's startup capital available out there, but leadership is a challenge. Not everyone's built to be. People might have wonderful ideas and can get something built, but they might not be built to get a business from a founding idea to a revenue generating business. And so you want to try to find people. Not to toot my own horn too much, but you want to try to find people like me that have done it and been there and are willing to go put some time into it. It's not reasonable for everyone that's got the capacity still and the experience to go build a startup that it's not reasonable to ask them to move across the country all the time, right? And it's certainly, I think it's a lazy way, it's a lazy thing to ask. And it's somewhat offensive. I used to get much more offended by like, why would you need me to move across the country? You're just assuming my employees aren't smart. You're just assuming they can't go do great stuff. You're talking to me because we've done something good. So yeah, I think that'll probably get squashed a bit because people are just so distributed, and the home office concept is the headquartered office concept is changing a bit to the home office concept. So I hope it does have a ripple effect of slowing down.
What does leadership mean to you?
Oh boy. So I think there's connectivity. So it's not enough to just say, I think this isn't a democracy and I'm the core decision maker. You have to really be connected to, the people, obviously the employees and people and their personal stories. So connectivity, transparency. I'm a huge fan of just trying to be as transparent as possible at every turn and really make, particularly in a startup, you're asking people to really give a lot of themselves. You're asking people to love it like you love it, love it like the founder loves it, and make decisions every day that supports that, and be wrong and then iterate really quickly. And so I just think you have to be super transparent about, as a leader, you have to be very transparent about how you're embracing, you're attacking problems, and make sure there's not a level of disconnect between, wow, that's the leader, or that's the CEO, or that's the manager, that he would never go do this. I think you want people to see that you would do it. And so transparency, connectivity, accountability. We have one core value at Able, which is own it, and the whole thing. It's all about own mistakes, own successes, own your own journey. Come tell us. Come tell me if you need more. Come tell me if you want to go. I mean, like just be super accountable to it and be willing to be accountable to it. So I think the old adage, be willing to do the work you're asking other people to do. I don't. I mean, I'm running a tech startup. And I can't write a line of code, so that's not necessarily true. But I want people to know that I'm willing to do anything else. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'm trying not to just sound cliche and what everyone says leadership is. I hope that if you would ask people if I'm a good leader, and for those people that would say yes, I hope they'd say he's really transparent, he's open, he is action oriented. I think dwelling on problems and mistakes is a mistake. I think you have to dive into solutions quickly, iterate from those really quickly, and then if you want to do a postmortem to try to learn something from it, that's fine. Once you've solved something, willingness to iterate. I learned a lot from our last gig and even before that at MCPC, and learned a lot about how to build offerings and opportunity and try to create economy around it, and build go-to-market plans. And I think willingness to iterate on plans is a huge thing, and have people contribute to that iteration. Really take people's feedback productively, be willing to debate it, and make sure everyone's heard. It's that whole buy-in versus consensus culture. I really try to have operate a buy-in oriented culture versus consensus. So I think hopefully people would say that they like that style of leadership, and that they get that from me.
That makes a lot of sense. When you look forward to what you hope to achieve with Able in the years to come, what is the kind of impact that you hope to have?
So obviously we are a venture capital backed startup, as we talked about earlier. So venture capital backed startups are built to exit, and that means to sell the shares of the company and create cash that goes into shareholders' hands. And so obviously I want to have done that successfully. I want reputationally to say that it was a success. I want to say we did that the right way. We made smart decisions. We thought about everyone at the in a very pari passu way, meaning employees, customers, and shareholders all got thought about at all major strategic decisions. One of my favorite things about Vox, I can count on more than one hand the amount of people that joined us in very entry level roles. In a lot of cases as temporary workers that have leveraged that and catapulted into really great careers. I like to think the culture we built there and some of the impact that culture had on people who helped that. I want Able to be the same thing, and I really want people to see us as a launching off point. There's a lady named Jill Ratterstorff, and she was on our board until recently, and she say to me, or has said to me a couple of times, one of the great things about successful startups is that they spawn other successful startups. And can you take a successfully exited company and have 3 to 5 other startups come out of that? And I think if we can instill a spirit of entrepreneurship in our employees, and those of them that are willing to be crazy enough to take that plunge, if we can kind of like be an acceleration to other folks jumping that, to me that would be a wonderful success. I'd love to work for one of my employees one day in their own startup. I get giddy when I think about the potential for that success. I want people to enjoy their time. It's a tough time for us right now because we're growing so fast and we're asking people to work incredible amount of hours, and you get these grinding moments in the ebbs and flows of a startup. And I think we're definitely one of those grinding moments. But I want people to look back at the aggregate and say, hey, that was awesome. I loved that experience. I really loved working with Gerald and the team, and I met some great people there. And I was happy to have spent that time in Cleveland doing that. And then, I mean, I really do think, again, we have 60,000 people. The last thing they did before they started a job last month was, do something in our platform. I really want to make sure, that we're trying to live up to that promise of making sure, allowing those people to have a great first day. And so, the real deep part of that mission is that there are lots of organizations, lots of HCM companies, lots of HR companies that are building software to make sure full-time employees that are going to spend a lot of time in an organization have an incredible first experience. The industry we serve is mostly temporary and contract workers. People who are, either going to go work at an Amazon warehouse, or going to go take a temporary job in a factory, or in the entertainment business. And we want to make sure that those people, they're still starting a job. It's still this great moment. It's still the culmination of the American dream, right? Someone's going to hire me. They're going to pay me to go do something. I'm going to put food on the table. And we think those people, whether it's a 30 years in a pension or a 1 month assignment, that the beginning should be a really wonderful, joyous experience. And we want to be part of that. And I'd hope that when it's all said and done, or when I'm no longer there, or when we're in a different place, that we will have delivered that to some degree.
Yeah, ready, willing, and able, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, that's awesome. To kind of close out here, one of the things that we are collecting as we go through this is not necessarily your favorite thing about Cleveland, but something that is like a hidden gem of sorts as we try and map the Cleveland ecosystem more broadly. But, in your mind, what is your kind of favorite hidden gem?
Wow. So Cleveland, I just think it's an incredible 4 seasons place, right? You have a winter, you have a summer, you have a spring, albeit short, and a fall, albeit short. But you have these super 4 seasons place. There's everything there's so much stuff to embrace around all those things. And I obviously, if you've read up on me, I love sports. I'm a Midwestern guy at heart. I love sports. I love cooking. I love breweries. I love all that stuff that stereotypically is expected of me for living in the Midwest. But if I was to say my favorite hidden gem, it might not be so much of a hidden gem, but I can't believe that people I still meet that haven't attended is the Lake Erie Islands. My wife and I love going up to Kelly's Island in the summer. This summer we took our children up there a couple times. It's just this awesome, particularly when you learn the history of the Lake Erie Islands and so how they've played, how they've been impactful in wars. And the largest set of glacier grooves in the country is up on Kelly's Island in Lake Erie, which is amazing. I think there's some really cool stuff up there. So I guess that'd be my favorite. Like if I'm on an airplane back when we used to travel and I sit next to someone and they'd be like, "Where are you from?" I'd say Cleveland. "Oh, cool. Like tell me something about it." I'd be like, "Oh, if you're ever there, you got to go, everyone's gonna say go to Cedar Point, go up to Lake Erie Islands, go up to Kelly's Island, you have a blast." So I love that. I also love some of the kind of cool breweries that have popped up. I love Masthead downtown, and I love the whole community of Lakewood and Ohio City, and just some really awesome parts of the city.
Nice. Adding it to my bucket list for Cleveland. If people have any questions or things that they would like to follow up with you about, Gerald, where is the best place for them to do so?
I say probably find me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message. That's the easiest. Otherwise, I'm Gerald at ableteams.com. Happy to take emails. But yeah, I say one of those two things is pretty easy.
Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today and telling your story. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, man.
That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, so shoot us an email at layoftheland@upside.fm or find us on Twitter at podlayoftheland, at TheTagan, or at Sternhefe, JEFE. We'll be back here next week at the same time to map more of the land. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please email us or find us on Twitter and let us know. And if you love our show, please leave a review on iTunes. That goes a long way in helping us spread the word and continue to help bring high-quality guests to the show.
Jeff and I decided there were a couple of things we wanted to share with you at the end of the podcast. And so here we go. Tegan Horton and Jeffrey Stern developed the Lay of the Land podcast in collaboration with the Up Company LLC. At the time of this recording, we did not own equity or other financial interests in the companies which appear on this show unless otherwise indicated. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinion and do not reflect the opinions of Founders Get Funds and its affiliates or Actual and its affiliates, or any entity which employ us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. We have not considered your specific financial situation, nor provided any investment advice on this show. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.